The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, it's so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, we will later today vote on the conference report to H.R. 1141, the bill to further fund NATO's aggression in Yugoslavia. The President has requested $7.9 billion, but Congress has felt compelled to give him $15 billion. Congress doesn't endorse the war. We voted overwhelmingly against declaring war, and yet we're giving the President twice the amount he requested to wage the war. It doesn't make any sense. We're asking the President to seek reimbursement from NATO members since we have assumed the financial burden for fighting this war. This has tremendous appeal, but cannot compensate for the short-sightedness of spending so much in the first place. The money may well never be recouped from our allies, and even if some of it is, it only encourages a failed policy of military adventurism. If this policy works, the United States that Congress is urging becomes a hired gun for the international order, a modern-day government mercenary. This is not constitutional, and it's a bad precedent to set. Reimbursement for the Persian Gulf War has helped to perpetuate that conflict, now going on for nearly a decade. It's time to think about a more sensible foreign policy. We should not encourage the senseless and immoral NATO aggression against Serbia. The funding of this war should not be approved, no matter what special interest appropriations have been attached to the initial request to gain support for this special spending measure. Our bombing continues to complicate the mess we helped create in Yugoslavia. Just about everyone concedes that the war can't be won without massive use of ground troops, which fortunately no one is willing to commit. So the senseless bombing continues while civilian casualties mount. And whom are we killing? Looks like we're killing as many innocent Albanians for whom we have gone to war as innocent Serbs. But why are we killing anybody? There's been no aggression against the United States and no war has been declared. It's time to stop this senseless bombing. The U.S. has become the world's bully. In recent months, we have bombed Serbia, Bulgaria, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Sudan, Iraq, and China. And in recent years, many others. The fetish we have with bombing anybody who looks cross-eyed at us has preoccupied our leaders for several decades, regardless of who has been in power. We may not be willing to admit it, but it's hardly the way to win friends and influence people. It's lousy diplomacy. It must stop. The only reason we get away with it is because we are the military and economic superpower. But that only leads to smoldering resentment and an unsustainable financial commitment that will in due time come to an end. Our superiority is not guaranteed to last. NATO, through their daily briefings, has been anxious to reassure us that its cause is just. Yet NATO cannot refute the charge that the refugee problem was made much worse with the commencement of the bombing. Yesterday, it was reported in the Los Angeles Times by Paul Watson, in stark contrast to NATO's propaganda, that in Spetsi, Yugoslavia, 15,000 Albanians displaced by the bombing remained near their homes in North Kosovo, including hundreds of young military-aged men, quote, strolling along the dirt roads or lying in the grass on a sunny day. There were no concentration camps, no forced labor, and no one serving as human shields, according to an Albanian interviewed by the Los Angeles Times. Many admitted they left their homes because they were scared after the bombing started. Some of the Albanians said that only time they saw the Serb police was when they came to sell cigarettes to the Albanians. We shouldn't be in Yugoslavia for obvious constitutional and moral reasons, but the American people should not believe the incessant propaganda that is put out by NATO on a daily basis. NATO's motives are surely suspect. I meet no one who can, with a straight face, claim that it was NATO's concern for the suffering of the refugees that prompted the bombing and demands by some to escalate the war with the introduction of ground troops. Even with NATO's effort to justify its aggression, they rarely demonstrate a hit on a military target. All this fine Star Wars technology, and we see reruns of strikes with perfect accuracy hitting infrastructures like bridges and buildings. I have yet to see one picture of a Serbian tank being hit, and I'm sure if they had some classy film like that, we would have seen it many times on the nightly television. NATO must admit its mistake in entering this civil war. It violates the NATO treaty and the UN Charter, as well as the U.S. Constitution. The mission has failed, the policy is flawed, innocent people are dying, it's costing a lot of money, it's undermining our national security, and there are too many accidents. I'm sick and tired of hearing NATO's daily apologies. There's nothing in America that can make us proud of this effort.
The gentleman's time has expired.